Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode number 10 of our WWE 2026 save in TEW IX. This is SmackDown for August 28th, 2026. Only a couple more episodes now until we get to our first PLE / pay-per-view of this series, Money in the Bank. Now, we have to get to a few things before we get there. Again, including what is a pretty jam-packed edition of SmackDown. I told you my voice was kind of going out on the previous episode. Well, apparently I must have made up for it on this one because I think there are more segments on this episode than I've had in a while in any series, but we have a lot to get to here on SmackDown. So let's jump in. We start with Michael Cole in the ring, and he is with our general manager, Nick Aldis. And it's sort of just Michael Cole teeing up the night. Nick Aldis is going to announce the big matches, and that's when Aldis says, Michael, we do have a big main event coming up tonight. But before Aldis can kind of get into all of that, Sami Zayn is out, and Zayn is pissed, and he is just yelling about how he's not going to let this conspiracy keep going. And Aldis asks him, what are you talking about, Sami? And he's like, with LA Knight. You all saw what happened last week. I should be in Money in the Bank. And again, Sami's just continuing to play up this conspiracy and all of that, right? Like, that's exactly what we're going for here with Sami. And Aldis says, okay, I didn't know if you were talking about that or if you were talking about tonight. And Sami's like, what are you talking about with tonight? 64 for this one. Here comes Oba Femi. So this gets an 80. And Oba comes out, and Sami's just like, what is he doing out here? And Aldis just kind of says, well, Sami, I thought you were talking about tonight's main event because tonight you're going to go one-on-one with Oba Femi here on SmackDown, the wrestling show. You get a chance to prove yourself. I know you're very unhappy with how things unfolded in the Money in the Bank qualifier, but Sami, you do get an opportunity against someone who will be getting a title shot as soon as we can figure out the contractual obligations. So Sami's more pissed about this. Oba gets up in Sami's face and tells Sami to get out of his ring. And again, he's very upset here. He is not happy about this turn of events, bringing up the conspiracy with LA Knight, and now also talking about everything that played out here with Oba Femi, and knowing that's going to be our main event tonight, Oba Femi and Sami Zayn. So, Sami's out of there. He's pissed. 80 for this one. So, Oba is there, and Michael Cole is saying, well, what do you have to say here, basically? And Oba just says, I'm not going to sit here and listen to Sami Zayn. I came out here for a reason. CM Punk, get your ass out here, because remember, going off the air last week, we did have CM Punk and Oba Femi, successful tag team as they defeated the Vanity Project duo, Brad Baylor and Ricky Smokes. And afterwards, it was Punk sort of, again, talking about how he was willing to embrace the pressure that Rey Mysterio had talking about leading into Money in the Bank, but he wasn't sure about Oba Femi because he decided to go over to Raw and pick Roman Reigns instead of picking the best in the world. And so Oba calls out Punk, and Punk is not waiting long at all because, again, these two clearly have something to settle here. And Oba just says, let's just cut right to it. You've been talking about it for weeks. You want to know why I picked Roman Reigns and why I am going to go over and win the World Heavyweight Championship whenever Mr. Aldis can make it happen? Oba says, I picked Roman because I wanted to face the biggest superstar in WWE. I wanted to face the person who would challenge me the most, Oba says. And CM Punk just says, stop right there. Because you're not going for the biggest challenge, because if you were, it would be against the best in the world. And that's me. And Oba just says, well, all I know is that Roman Reigns beat you at WrestleMania. And Punk, gets some oohing and ahhing from the crowd here, and Punk just kind of smirks a little bit. He just says, you know what? You're right. He did beat me at WrestleMania. And yet here I am, still quicker than anybody thought, finding my way back to being the best and the top champion in WWE. And this is the belt that everyone's coming for, Oba. Don't you see? You're the one who decided to go for the belt over there on Raw. Look at all the people who have lost their minds over the past 3 weeks, knowing that I'm the champion. Look at the line of people who are trying to get to my championship. Punk says, I hear all the people chanting your name the same way they have always chanted mine. And some people think that makes me jealous. Punk says, no, it doesn't. It actually makes me want this even more. Why don't we find out who the best is? If you think you're the best in the world, then why don't you step up and do something about it? And so these two, we're getting a little intense here again, right? So these two now getting in each other's face. Nick Aldis is standing there. He's advising some officials here. He's starting to see this thing escalate. And so Punk and Oba at odds here once again. And so that is kind of where we have things set up here. Now, it could keep going, but in a 91 here, we go to the next segment. Now, I know, remember, this is just kind of our pre-start to the show before we actually get to the big wrestling action, right? This is what we try to do. So, here comes Bron Breakker, and Aldis is realizing he's got to direct some of these officials to Bron Breakker because he's had the issues with Oba Femi in recent weeks and CM Punk. So now Aldis is trying to direct traffic here, keeping Bron Breakker away from CM Punk and Oba Femi, who are ready to tear each other apart, it seems. And so Breakker makes his entrance. Eventually, Aldis gets everyone out of there. He gets Punk out of the way, Oba out of the way, because we're going to get to our Money in the Bank qualifier right now to start this show with Bron Breakker versus Dominik Mysterio. So that's kind of the thinking here, is that Bron is taunting CM Punk. He's taunting Oba Femi. All of these guys, again, are jawing back and forth. It's the title scene that Punk mentioned. Everyone at odds here trying to get to this championship. And meanwhile, Dominik Mysterio, as he makes his entrance, and all this is kind of finally getting things under control with Breakker in the ring and all this stuff, Dominik's just talking about how unfair this is. Because remember, Aldis stuck Dominik with Bron Breakker in the Money in the Bank qualifier and all that. So that's kind of, how we get things started here. So a lot going on, but it's SmackDown, and you know how it works. So again, an 88 for this one. That is going to get us to our first of two men's Money in the Bank qualifiers on this show. We got Chad Gable versus Damian Priest later on. But who's it going to be? Joining the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. And in a 57 here, which is not very good, Bron Breakker gets the win over Dominik Mysterio in 7-10. Again, I would prefer the spear, but it goes with the Steiner recliner. On this one, they do have pretty good chemistry, and it lifted the match. So, 68-63 here, yet we only get a 57 for the rating. I'm going to assume that's a heel versus heel thing. I don't love doing this, and I know there is a bit of that mix and match that we're doing right now because we kind of have everyone, aiming for the top title. So you'll see that start to sort itself out after Money in the Bank. But for now, this is kind of the best way. And again, I don't love doing this. I'm very old school. I like the face versus the heel. But this was kind of the way I wanted to, on both shows, really get everybody's story in motion. And then you'll start to see that separation a little bit more after we get through Money in the Bank. So, yeah, no storyline here, the face-heel combination, so it knocks the rating a little bit. But the big story, Breakker does get the win. He's joining Money in the Bank. Only one spot left to fill, and that will either be Chad Gable or Damian Priest. So we know so far we've got Bron Breakker, we've got Jacob Fatu, Solo Sikoa, Trick Williams, Carmelo Hayes, and there's someone else that I know I'm forgetting of this group, but it'll come to me here shortly. But we continue on as we see in the back that it is Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. And again, Johnny has finally made his way up off the table, but the guy's still not saying a whole lot, right? He's still kind of just in his usual sort of days here when it comes to the whole situation. By the way, I forgot, like LA Knight and Javon Evans, those are the other obvious two here on SmackDown. My mind blanked on that. But so you've got Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae, and she's just asking Johnny, do you believe again? You just had two outstanding performances against CM Punk and Rey Mysterio, the two guys that are going to face each other for the championship at Money in the Bank. And she's just like, please tell me. Like, I see it. It's coming back, Johnny. Like, it's there. Please tell me you're going to get up and do something about it now. You just did that. That was you. And so as she's saying this, here comes Sami. And Sami is looking at Candice, and he's just like, what are you talking about? He lost. He lost 2 matches to CM Punk and Rey Mysterio. He's a loser the last 2 weeks. And you can see Johnny kind of, his eyes start to move a little bit here, right? Like he's starting to get some thoughts as to what Sami Zayn is saying, but he's not responding here. And so Sami's just like, Johnny, I don't mean to be harsh here. You've been my best friend over the past little bit, but listen, this is part of the problem, is that they're allowing us to accept being losers. Now, I'm not a loser. I've continually been screwed out of my position here. It all started with CM Punk. Now it's continued with LA Knight, and it just keeps going. When does it stop? For me. When does it stop for you? Sami says. So let's just call it what it is. Right now, you're a loser. And right now, I have been screwed out of multiple opportunities. So together, we need to fix this, Sami says. And so that's how we kind of leave it. As Gargano, something's in motion here. We can see it, but Sami's just ranting nonetheless. So 63 for this segment. All right, gets us to tag team action here. And this one, Fatal Influence. Fallon Henley, Laney Reed get the win over Natty and Maxine Dupree with the rear naked choke is this one. So Fatal Influence defend their championship successfully. And I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute. Natty and Maxine Dupree, didn't they just break up a year ago or whatever it was now? Yeah, they did. But for these purposes, we are getting them back together for this tag team match. Because like I said, we still have to work out the face-heel dynamic for these two in particular, I think. So it works for this, but yeah, it's a match. We needed a tag team title defense here for the champs. We have more to come for them, but we got to let it play out for a little bit. Again, Money in the Bank, it's kind of a tricky first show. I'll say that. It's very tricky because there's a lot of things you got to put in motion. It's not your traditional card. So, yeah, we'll get to this. But Fatal Influence, the victory here. 2 in a row now as they won that match on Raw as well. 47, the champs are still the champs. All right, 71 here for this one. Dominik aching after his spear from Bron Breakker. And what do you know? The first person there is not Liv Morgan. It is Blake Monroe. As Blake Monroe comes up and says, Dom, I just wanted to check on you. Just want to make sure you're okay. She's rubbing his back here. And she's just like, you're right about everything. It's completely unfair what Nick Aldis did to you tonight. Completely unfair. And I just want you to know, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here for you. I see all the hard work you've put in. And meanwhile, your dad is getting a shot at the championship. And Dom's just like, yeah, I know. And then, of course, you know what happens next. Here comes Liv, Raquel, and Roxanne. And Liv just staring darts into the eyes of Blake Monroe here. And she just says, well, I guess I need to be on my way. I have a Money in the Bank match to prepare for here pretty soon. Roxanne, I know the same for you. And Raquel, I know you've got a match tonight. Maybe we'll see you there also. And Liv just staring at Blake Monroe. So Blake Monroe not even acknowledging Liv's existence here. And so that pisses off Liv even more. And she just looks at Dominik. And we kind of get your, typical sitcom type scenario here. 71 for this one. All right. Now we get to, I mentioned Javon Evans and Money in the Bank. I didn't forget about him. I don't know why. I'm just like, we have a lot of people in these Money in the Bank matches. So sometimes I forget the others. So 73, really good match here. Siobhan Evans gets the win over JD McDonagh, 758. So that was kind of the thinking, was that JD was about to head to the ring and all that, so we had the little Judgment Day transition there. We did design this to go steal the show because these two can go at it, and so, good stuff here. 73 really came through on this one. So Javon doing usual stuff here, just great matches from this guy, and clearly one of our top stars for the future. All right. Speaking of Money in the Bank qualifiers, LA Knight, as we said there also, 65 for this one. Byron Saxton with LA Knight. And Byron just says, LA, boy, there's been a lot going on here tonight. You had everything with Sammy and CM Punk and Oba Femi and Bron Breakker. And LA Knight says, yeah, Byron, but I've heard enough complaining from Sami Zayn. I've heard enough about Oba Femi talking about challenging Roman Reigns instead of CM Punk, and CM Punk out there getting all upset about it. He's mad because Oba Femi won't challenge him. I've seen it all with this drama going on SmackDown right now. But while everybody else is dealing with the drama, I'm focused. I'm focused on doing something I haven't been able to do yet, and everybody keeps reminding me that I've never won Money in the Bank. Sami Zayn or anybody else tries to get in my way. And so, as LA Knight says this, well, guess what? Here he comes. It's Sami Zayn. As he walks up and he just looks at LA Knight and says, you can't be serious. You can't be standing there talking about how you're going to win Money in the Bank when you didn't even earn an opportunity to be in that match. We all saw the controversy last week, and you're just going to sit there and act like nothing ever happened, Sami says. You should be ashamed of yourself. And Sami just keeps going here, and LA Knight, is just looking at Sami, and he's just shaking his head and saying, weren't you just a champion a month ago? And Sami, again, another little bit of a dig there that Sami no longer the champion. And, just the usual chaos here. Sami walks off. He's pissed. So everywhere Sami goes, he's not very happy right now. So that's kind of your setup here. 65 for this one. And LA Knight just looking at Sami, and he says, good luck later on with Oba Femi. I got a feeling you're going to get what you've got coming to you. So LA Knight kind of says that there. All right. In our other women's Money in the Bank qualifier, Sol Ruca gets the win over Raquel Rodriguez, and she does it with a fast roll-up here. So no shenanigans. Sol Ruca with a sort of a flash pinfall finish. She does get the win, so our Women's Intercontinental Champion is going to advance to the Women's Money in the Bank match, getting the win over Raquel. And again, 66 here. Pretty good stuff, I would say, for these two, who don't have a ton of popularity. But, again, the story here is that, of course, Raquel's not alone, right? Like, she's there, and she has Roxanne, she has Liv, and they've tried to interfere in this match, but it was Sol still somehow defying the odds here and getting a fast roll-up for the win. Well, afterwards, you've got Sol Ruca and Roxanne Perez start to brawl, because Roxanne goes to attack Sol after the victory there, and they're brawling everywhere. But out comes Lyra Valkyria, who we know is also going to be in this women's Money in the Bank match, as she takes out both of them. So she comes in, and again, we're kind of doing the thing where Lyra is like starting that turn here. I know she's fully made that turn in reality, but we're kind of really leaning into that. So Lyra is kind of a loose cannon right now. So she takes out both Sol and Roxanne. So she's standing tall over these two. But meanwhile, as all three of these women have kind of brawled, down the aisle and all this stuff, and Lyra takes out Roxanne and Sol, and Liv and Raquel are kind of looking there like, oh boy, what's going on here? Well, guess who else happens to be there? It's Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. Because after Lyra has left Roxanne and Sol down, well, Liv and Raquel are going to go maybe try to finish things with Sol Ruca, but here come Rhea and Charlotte. And they go after those two, but you won't believe it. Liv retreats here, and they hightail it out of there. And Rhea just says, hold on a second. Wait, Liv. Don't leave yet. I've been waiting a long time to get back to this. And Rhea says, so how about we do something about this little problem here we have since I came back last week. And Rhea says, well, since we all know you're not going to defend your championship until you're forced to, Rhea says, why don't you two team up against me and Charlotte at Money in the Bank? And since none of us are in the Money in the Bank match now, sorry, Raquel, why don't we solve our little problems here in the ring? And so, Liv is she's pissed. Raquel is pissed after that little shot there from Rhea. She wants to go at him. Charlotte's yelling at Liv about how she's going to have to defend her title against her at some point. And so Raquel, the person here who accepts and says, absolutely, you're on. And again, Liv's a little bit, not too happy with this development here. So perhaps we will have an official tag team match for Money in the Bank. Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. How will it all play out? We will find out. 73 for this one. All right, now we got Byron with the Street Profits, and we know what they're going to be doing at Money in the Bank. The big tag team title unification match against the Usos was made official last week. We will have one set of tag team titles on the main roster. Who will it be? Well, there's nothing more here than just Byron asking them about that and saying, Byron, we don't just want the smoke from the Usos. We know what it means. We know the Bloodline are going to find a way to get involved. Montez Ford says, we'll take the smoke from all of them. And if Big Daddy Roman Reigns wants to come down too, he can come watch, because we're going to walk out of Money in the Bank with all the gold and be the tag team champions here in WWE. So again, pretty straightforward babyface promo here from the Street Profits, as they don't just want it from the Usos here. They welcome all from the Bloodline when it comes to how things can play out in this big tag team title unification match. 55 for this segment. All right. They've got a match as they're going to defend their titles. They're fighting champions. And the Street Profits get the win here over Alpha Academy when Montez Ford pins Akira Tozawa. And so second title defense here. Just kind of, again, sort of your typical TV showcase tag team title defense here. Because, again, these guys they're just confident. They're going to keep defending their titles if they have to, even ahead of that tag team title unification match. So, Street Profits get the win, but that's not really the story here, because what happens after, 47, so not so great, but popularity has something to do with that. Here comes Tama Tonga and Tala Tonga. First time we've seen them here in our series. They come out and they destroy everyone. They take out the Street Profits, they take out Otis and Akira Tozawa, and they leave these guys laying. That's kind of what we're playing up here, right? Is that here they are, the tag team division. There's another team that's now put themselves into the mix. And again, they did just say we welcome all from the Bloodline. So maybe Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins knew it was coming with Tama Tonga and Tala Tonga taking them out. We don't have Haku on here yet, but I'd love to get Haku added to the save if we can do that, because what a tremendous guy, Haku. The absolute badass. So there's the story. Tama Tonga and Tala Tonga standing tall over the tag team champions coming out of this. All right. Now we got kind of a video package here, and we're playing up our last men's Money in the Bank qualifying match. Yes, LA Knight and Javon Evans, also part of that list I named earlier. Don't forget it. But Chad Gable and Damian Priest. The final spot will be secured here, and Gable just says his goals are not complete. Winning the Intercontinental Championship was a dream for him, but he can't lie when it comes to maybe being the WWE Champion or the World Heavyweight Champion. It's always been his number one goal, and he's not done yet. So that's kind of the story from Chad Gable. Meanwhile, Damian Priest talking about how he's seeing all these guys coming after the top champion. Well, that used to be him. That used to be me that everybody was coming after. I've got to find my way back to the top. I don't have a choice, Damian Priest says. So, 60 for this one. And now we are going to get to our final men's Money in the Bank ladder match qualifier. Who's it going to be? It is Chad Gable getting the win over Damian Priest in 7:37 with the Chaos Theory, 60 for the match. Gable still getting the benefit from the flavor of the month. Again, another match I know that's going to get knocked for the babyface on babyface thing. Also, no associated storyline. these are the kind of things that, again, are getting ironed out right now. It will start to have a much more clear divide after Money in the Bank. I can say that with full confidence. So, for now, though, Gable gets the win, and he is headed to Money in the Bank. So, our men's Money in the Bank match, it is now official. We know who will be competing in this big match. As I said, it is going to be Chad Gable. It'll be LA Knight, Javon Evans, Bron Breakker, Jacob Fatu, Solo Sikoa, Trick Williams, and Carmelo Hayes. So, there are your 8 men who will take part in this match, and you have kind of the setup there on that. And remember, for the women's match, if you're curious, we do have that lineup now set after Sol Ruca advanced. It is Sol Ruca, Lyra Valkyria, Roxanne Perez, Blake Monroe, Julia, JC Jane, Lash Legend, and Bailey. That is your group that will be in the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. All right. So therefore, we know the big matches. They're set. Should be fun. What's not fun is Nick Aldis making this announcement, because in a 64 rated segment here, he says that he gave Seth Rollins every opportunity. He said last week, Aldis in the ring here with Michael Cole. He said, Michael, I didn't want to have to come back out here, but I said last week that Seth Rollins is under contract, and that if he did not show up on SmackDown, his contract would be terminated. It has been 1 month since we did the draft, and, well, there's nothing else that I can do because Seth has not showed up to work. And therefore, I can't have his contract on the books here on SmackDown. So therefore, tonight, after the show, I will be terminating Seth Rollins' contract with SmackDown. So it's a bit of a boo from the crowd here, but Aldis, he's the general manager. He has to control these kind of things, and Rollins has not showed up. So, there you have it. But, as Aldis is there, he's going to, kind of step away a little bit as Michael Cole welcomes in Rey Mysterio, who, again, will go one-on-one with CM Punk for the Undisputed WWE title at Money in the Bank, 83 for this second. And Michael just says, Rey, I'm going to ask you the same thing I know everyone else has talked about here tonight. There is a lot going on SmackDown. There are a lot of people who seem to have their eyes on CM Punk, and maybe more specifically, the Undisputed WWE Championship. Michael says, but Rey, you're the one who gets the shot at Money in the Bank. And you've talked about how this may be it for you. You know this is your last opportunity. How are you feeling now as we're just about a little over a week away from what could be one of the biggest matches of your career? And Rey just says, Michael, I've been thinking about it. I've not stopped thinking about it. I've even questioned myself a lot over the past few weeks after winning that match. Did I really make the right move here? Should I really be putting myself in this position to maybe go out and even embarrass myself against the best in the world? CM Punk is right. He's the best in the world. So, should I even be in this position? I've been asking myself that many times. But Michael, I'm also getting a little nervous because I do know who I'm going to be facing at Money in the Bank. And I know it is the best in the world. Rey says, but it's also CM Punk. And Michael just says, well, what do you mean by that, Rey? What do you mean it's CM Punk? Rey just says, look, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. Everyone knows that CM Punk and I are good friends now, but we have our history. And it is a little bit complicated. And there are things that CM Punk did to me that I will never forget. And so I know he's come back. He's a changed man. But I also know that he said it himself. He's the best in the world, and he will do what he has to do to keep his championship. And so Rey's talking about this, and then here comes Punk. So Punk's coming back out here, and you can tell, this was not a plan from CM Punk. He's like, hold on a second. Wait a minute, Rey. Punk comes out, and he's just like, Rey, I was just going to come out here and, maybe enjoy myself watching this next match, our main event, Oba Femi and Sami Zayn. But, I heard what you had to say. And what do you mean? You're getting a little nervous because of who you're facing at Money in the Bank. Yeah, you're right. I'm the best in the world. You should be nervous. But what do you mean? Who I am and the history and all this other stuff. And Rey just says, look, I didn't mean anything by it. I just understand. I've seen you. I know what you're capable of. And Rey says, I'm not saying you would go to that lengths to do that to me, one of your best friends. But I've been thinking about it. And CM Punk just says, I'm starting to sense some things around here, whether it's from you, whether it's some of my other so-called friends, whether it's just anyone. It seems like people are really starting to maybe get a little bit tired of CM Punk being the best in the world, of being the champion, being at the top, when no one thought I would ever come back, Punk says. Now, why is that? Is it because you're jealous too? Just like Oba Femi maybe? Or just like LA Knight? Or Sami Zayn? Punk says, I don't want to be asking these questions to you, Rey, but you brought it up. Like, is there a problem here? Because, yeah, I'm going to go in and do what I have to do because I'm the best in the world and I am the undisputed WWE champion. You have to beat me. So, Rey, I want you to keep asking that question. Can you beat me at Money in the Bank? Because that's all you got to do to be the champion again. It may be your last opportunity. I hope it's not. But if it is, take your best shot, Punk says. So, Punk just walks out, he shakes Rey's hand, and again, we got a little bit of tension here between the two friends as we're getting closer to that big match at Money in the Bank. And so Punk goes over, he takes a seat because he said he was going to watch this main event. He just, seemingly out of curiosity, Punk was going to have some fun here tonight and watch this main event between Oba Femi and Sami Zayn. And so Michael Cole just says, well, that certainly was not something I thought we'd get into, but Rey, I appreciate your time. And next week we will be in San Diego, your hometown, only days away from Money in the Bank. So that's how Michael Cole leaves it there. And CM Punk is seated and ready for the main event tonight as Rey is out of there. 83 for this segment. And before we get there, though, let's get to our angle because we're going to get one of these where we get a little bit of an angle for the match. So as I said, CM Punk is sitting ringside for this one because he wanted to, as the champion, partake in this very interesting match here. And Sami Zayn, of course, is complaining the entire time. He's trying to stall a bit here. And, eventually Zayn gets thrown around a little bit by Oba Femi, and he says, I'm out of here. I'm walking out. I'm not doing this. And so Sami tries to walk out, but as he gets close to the backstage area, there's LA Knight. And so the referee has turned his attention because Oba Femi is now looking over at CM Punk. So the referee's kind of looking at Oba and all this. So Sami seemingly just going to walk out here and basically either get himself counted out. A lot of commotion. The referee is like, what do I choose here? And he has to turn his attention away for 1 second just to look at Oba Femi and CM Punk kind of verbally jousting each other here. And LA Knight is there, and he just grabs Sami Zayn. He won't let him run away. He throws him back into the ring. And so that's kind of the story we're playing up here, right? Is that Sami was complaining to LA Knight earlier. He's been complaining, and LA Knight just said, let me do it again here. And that's kind of it. 88 for this one. I'm only get a 68 here for a main event. My goodness. That is low. That is not what I was looking for. So that's going to hurt our rating a bit. But remember, we do still have the face heel combination, the lack of an associated storyline. Now, I thought we had something going here, but maybe they're in separate ones. So that's on me in terms of combining everything together. But again, the story here. So I think what happened was I initially had Sami getting counted out, but I did change that because I have a reason for it. So Sami, again, the story here should be that Oba Femi defeats Sami Zayn. So that's on me. I probably just didn't save it or whatever whenever I did make that swap. But Oba wins the match. That's the story here. But again, Sami has got another reason to cry out for the conspiracy after LA Knight did what he did. So 68 for this one. Meanwhile, here comes Bron Breakker, right? Because if you thought Bron was going to leave this situation alone, no, he was just focused on his match with Dominik earlier, and now Bron's in Money in the Bank. So Bron comes out, and again, Punk's been sitting at this chair ringside by commentary and all that. So Bron comes out from the crowd. Well, these two start brawling. So Breakker goes after Punk, but again, Punk's a little bit pissed off. You can tell there's still a little bit of that, little anger maybe in Punk's face after that exchange earlier. And so Punk just grabs a chair, and all of a sudden after this brawling here, Punk's got a chair, and he's just hauling off on Bron Breakker. So gets a couple shots in, and Punk hauls off on Breakker. Oba Femi, again, has kind of turned his attention to things. Sami Zayn once again complaining. As the referee's going to the back, Zayn's complaining about everything and all this stuff. So Punk hauling off on Bron Breakker with a chair. And so Breakker, Paul Heyman's over there, and he's just like, Bron, get out of there. Basically just get out of this. So he hauls off on him with a chair. 87 for this one. So Paul Heyman is kind of calling Bron Breakker back again, just as we saw him do with Oba Femi a couple weeks ago. But as that happens, wow, 96. Here comes Seth Rollins. So, again, Heyman has called Breakker out of there. We got Oba Femi in the ring. And we got CM Punk, who's staring at Bron Breakker and Paul Heyman now up in the crowd. They're, again, kind of just coming from where they came from there. So Rollins returns, and there are only two people in the aisleway here. It is Seth Rollins, and it is CM Punk. Oba Femi still standing in the ring. So Seth Rollins comes up, and he goes face-to-face with CM Punk, and they are on each other's face. We know the history between these two, and they could come to blows right now. But Seth Rollins just walks past CM Punk, and he goes right into the ring, and Seth Rollins steps up and gets right in Oba Femi's face as these two stare each other down, and Punk, in the background of the shot here, is confused and is staring at Seth Rollins and Oba Femi going face to face. So 96 for the segment. Seth is back. Perhaps that means Nick Aldis will not terminate his contract. And while it was right there on the tee for Seth to hit, he walks right past CM Punk to go up and confront the ruler, Oba Femi. So that's how we go off there on this jam-packed edition of SmackDown. And for this show, we get an 81. So even with a pretty poor main event, the segments and stuff really brought it up a bit. So 81, we increased our popularity in 4 regions, so that's good. Like I said, there was a lot of segments on this show. I think it was 24 segments. I don't usually go that high, but we did have to put a lot in here. And again, these shows will be a lot more, packed together until after Money in the Bank, because this is how I like to set the foundation. I like to get everybody on the path to where they're headed. And sometimes, you use a lot more people than you're actually going to use maybe coming out of kind of that initial start. It's kind of the same thing. Go back to our 2021 save. King of the Ring was our first show. So it's kind of another kind of theme type show. I don't love those, but we did King of the Ring then, Money in the Bank here. There was a lot of stuff we put in motion, but afterwards, then you kind of got to, again, building to your traditional cards and your rivalries and all that stuff. So it'll all play out, but I'm pretty pleased with where things are right now. So if you thought the SmackDown division was already crowded in terms of the title scene, Seth Rollins is back and walked right past the champion to go face-to-face with Oba Femi. All right, let's see what else we need to get to here. Our financial reports, $802,000. It's no Raw, but we're still making money on SmackDown. Have no fear. There's still a little money to spend. There, popularity recap, nothing of note. So, all right, let's see what else we need to get to before we wrap up. All right, so that was SmackDown. Positive show. Let's see if there's anything on the news here. We got some NXT stuff brewing. Saquon Sugars and Michael Lockwood. Well, that's not good. Sour the backstage atmosphere. So, Vanity Project not going to be happy about that. So, not good for Saquon Sugars. Not good if you're messing with someone associated with the Vanity Project. All right, let's get to our mail. Oh, no. Oh, not again. Oh, my. It seems like anytime we make progress here, one step forward, two steps back. So Seth Rollins decides to walk past CM Punk on SmackDown. All of a sudden, Punk's just taking it a little bit too far. Maybe Ray was on something here. So Fallon Henley and Seth Rollins are arguing now. Jamie Noble and Seth Rollins arguing. But Seth Rollins arguing with everyone. Raquel and Seth arguing. And then JD and Seth arguing. So, my goodness. Like, we've reached a point here with this whole thing. And I know some people have been saying, you know what, go in and maybe even edit that a little bit. That relationship. Because clearly, look at this. Like, look how many people now that Seth Rollins has negative opinions on, or, just all this stuff. It's wild. Brad Baylor. You can't have a negative opinion of Brad Baylor. So, not ideal. Strong dislike of CM Punk. We're going to have to do something about that. But it did say Punk was the person who's causing the rifts here. Oh, boy. Our champion, and yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. All right, drug test fees, SmackDown, a lot of viewers. There you have it. Another edition of SmackDown. Appreciate you guys watching. Hit the like button, subscribe button, turn on your notifications. And, yeah, as I said, we are getting close to Money in the Bank. And we'll have our edition of Raw coming up. I think if I'm looking at the dates here, now what I do usually at the end of each month, you guys know this going back to the 2021 save, and honestly, I think I did them in all the other saves too. It's the state of, right? We do the state of the company. We look at the popularity ratings for superstars. We look at how the game world has changed. I'm still going to do that at the start of September, so that will be, so that'll be after Raw. We'll do kind of a quick episode looking at the month that was August, and you'll kind of see, again, any sort of developments on the popularity front and all that. But it won't be as long because, again, the game's not really changed too much after 1 month. So we will do it, though, just for, completionist purposes. But, yeah, we will take a look at that. And I've got some other ideas for kind of how I want to do that monthly. But we'll debate that in that episode once we get to it. But hope you enjoyed SmackDown. I really am enjoying this show. Not that I'm not enjoying Raw, but it is different than the Bloodline. So it's kind of fun to kind of have all these pieces that are bouncing back and forth. I think we got a good thing going on SmackDown, and we do at least have long-term plans. So we know where this stuff's headed. It just may be a little confusing into how we're going to sort all this out with all these people who want the title. So there you have it. All right, guys. Always appreciate your feedback. So again, let me know. Love hearing it in the comments and all that. Check out all the other series here on the channel. More on the way. And again, thanks for watching. And on the next episode of our WWE 2026 save, it will be the go-home edition of Raw before Money in the Bank.